Hi, everybody. Mike Bloom here, back with more coverage of The Amazing Race 38. It was a big episode, a shocking episode, most shocking elimination of the season. We've seen a good amount of them because we're only down to 5 teams. We're less than a month away from this whole shindig being concluded. And we know Thanksgiving is coming up. So at the end of all of our coverage of this week, we decided to provide a nice, sumptuous pie, a sweet treat in the form of an interview with someone in the Big Brother community. I'm very excited to welcome this guy in because if you've been hanging out on YouTube, you know him, you love him. If you don't, you should be acquainted with him right now because he is one of the most preeminent Big Brother YouTubers out there. It is the one, the only Ethanimale.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. I mean, really, you were the one that orchestrated all of this. You got me to watch this season of The Amazing Race.
I can either say you're welcome or I'm so sorry. We'll find that out in the next few minutes. How you feel about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good about it. How many episodes? I had to binge like 8 episodes, and if it wasn't a good time, I probably would have quit after 2 episodes. But clearly, I'm here. Clearly, I did the binge, and I'm really excited to talk about it and just shoot around.
Yeah, excited to get into it with you. I mean, I guess the first thing I want to start with is obviously we know your connection to Big Brother, considering all the great content you give, whether it be during the season or off, especially taking a look through the grand history of Big Brother. But what is your history with The Amazing Race? Was this a show that you have watched once upon a time, that you watched through to its current day, or was this truly a bit of a stranger in a strange land of, I don't really know this show, but I do know Big Brother?
Yeah, it's definitely more of the stranger to a strange land. I have seen at least one season in the past because I used to really like Vine when I was a kid. I would make Vines, I would do all of that. And there was like a Vine season of The Amazing Race,
Yeah.
if I recall. And I watched that one. But after that, I haven't really been an avid Amazing Race viewer. Even the reality showdown one, was that
Right,
what
when
it
we
was
had Big
called?
Brother stars on there previously.
Yeah, even that, only having 3 Big Brother teams, that wasn't enough to get me into it. But this time, they really, stretched me thin. They're like, "Okay, we're gonna put all Big Brother teams on for you," and, clearly, I finally bit. I started watching it, and it has been pleasantly, very enjoyable.
I am curious just in general because you are so affiliated with Big Brother. We have had, including this show, a lot of people branch out into other reality shows. Do you follow them to these other series, or is it, as you mentioned before, chiefly a hey, if it's Big Brother themed, I'll watch it. Otherwise, if it's just featuring a famous face, I might like dip my toes in the water, but that's it.
It's definitely just like the dip my toes in. Big Brother is so much as it
Yeah.
is. Even if it's only during the summer, it's hard to keep up. I'll watch the challenge sometimes, but even then, I'll watch like 3 episodes here and then I'll take a break for 2 months and then I'll be like, oh, I should probably finish that. But yeah, I guess it depends. If they're like my favorite, Angela Murray, I will watch Angela wherever she goes. But just like, your plain Jane everyday Big Brother player, if they go hop on another show, I'm probably not going to watch it, but I'll be interested.
So then I'm incredibly intrigued about your thoughts on the season so far. And I think we'll sort of segment out this most recent episode because there's a lot to dig into with that
Yeah.
specifically. But I would say, especially in the process of binging it, I'm always curious about these shows, about the, watching it on the weekly versus kind of watching it all at once. What was sort of your feeling from getting to get so much of this concept in such a short amount of time, especially given the fact that, as you mentioned, this is not necessarily a concept that like you have dedicated your whole heart to.
Yeah, watching it back to back, it is interesting because in one aspect, it almost mitigates or diminishes the amount of connection I have with the specific team. So it's really
Yeah.
helpful that I know most of these people from their Big Brother because for them, 3 or 4 legs, that's a lot of time. But for me, I'm watching it in like 3.5 hours. But even still, like it has been shockingly, like I get like emotionally connected to these teams still. There were 3 different instances where I felt my eyes welling up with tears
Ooh.
throughout the season, and that's not something that I normally have happen. Even like watching Big Brother, my favorite gets evicted. I'm more so just like, oh darn, that stinks. But with this, it really was pulling at my heartstrings.
Okay, well now we have to divulge into this. Ethanimale style, give me the top 3 moments that you got emotional during The Amazing Race 38.
All right. Well, the first one is not really an emotional, and it wasn't an emotional moment. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It was Matt and Megan's elimination, but that's just because I'm friends with them.
Yes.
So like seeing that, I was like, oh darn! Like because I had known that they had gotten out in third, but watching it happen, that was tough. And then Hannah and Simone was the second one
Yeah.
when it was before they were like right before they were eliminated on the that like scooter race challenge that they got last, when Hannah was just cheering Simone on, like, you can do it, don't give up. My eyes started welling up again. That one was tough. And then the last one, which was definitely the most emotional, but in like a positive way, was Joseph and Adam getting to the mat and then being told it's a non-elimination. That was, oh my gosh, that was super emotional.
Yeah.
You could see from that, like, it was super emotional for them, and you could just like feel the pain and then the relief and the both the proudness and the triumph and just everything about it. It was just super emotional, super good time to watch.
Yeah, I did just realize in retrospect that remember that time that Phil told Joseph and Adam in like leg 4, this is the most emotion I've ever seen on the mat. He really should have saved that comment in his
He
pocket.
should have, because that blew it out of the water.
Well, we need to talk about this most recent episode because if we talk about emotions flying, they were out in full force in many different ways here. I guess I want to start with your thoughts on the U-turn vote in general, because what's been so interesting about covering The Amazing Race, following The Amazing Race, is that there are a good amount of us that dip our toes into a lot of the CBS reality waters. And so when an element of social strategy like a U-turn vote, like a U-turn in general comes up, we're probably more amenable to it. There are certainly Amazing Race fans that are very specifically watching the show for the travel aspect or, getting to meet new people, less so about like, I hate alliances. There was one season where they essentially was like a Big Brother-esque majority alliance that steamrolled the competition until the end. People were not entirely happy with that. So just the idea of bringing this U-turn vote in, what was sort of your perspective, especially given the fact that these people have a background in this sort of thing, albeit in a very different setting?
Yeah, it was interesting because it felt like this was the most we've seen them in their element, because this is the Big Brother part, the tie-in, you could say. So watching not only like how they voted, but them talking about their strategy behind it. You had Adam as well as Tucker and Eric both basing their votes, at least on the revote, all based on trying to force the tie.
Mm.
So it was really interesting watching these players really take the personal out of it, or not being able to take the personal out of it in Joseph's case, where he was like, Adam, you're doing it all. But it would like, I really enjoyed it. That was probably my favorite part because that was the most Big Brother-esque part.
All right, well, let's get into, I think, some of the larger beats of this vote that I'm intrigued to get your thoughts on. Again, as someone who deep dives into some of the biggest minutia behind even individual votes, especially given, as you mentioned, a lot of pre-existing relationships that were brought into this, which, again, we're not really at the forefront. There was a little bit of, like, Jag and Jazz U-turning Izzy and Paige for fear that they would get retribution later on, which, spoiler alert, they would, evidently. But
Yeah.
I think the first thing we need to talk about, and honestly, I think the biggest amount of discussion I've seen around this U-turn vote is with Jazz and Jag voting for Taylor and Kyland, prompting Taylor to get incredibly emotional, talking about how she feels, especially with that whole gentleman's agreement, misunderstanding, trying to respond to the optics of the all-women teams being targeted, only for moments later her to reveal that she has also voted for an all-woman team. Now, this is something we talked about on the podcast that I still affirm that I think that you can separate sort of like the logic that Kylan and Taylor had used for the vote, which I still think is sound, and the very unsound nature of, hey, maybe don't make that speech talking about inequities in gender in the game and then voting for an all-woman team. But give me your perspective on this.
Yeah. I mean, it was so very clear that Izzy and Paige were not likely to get U-turned. And as you said, Kylan and Taylor's logic was very sound, where it's like, this is a burn vote. There was no intention to try and burden the female teams even more. However, having that whole emotional moment before where you really lay out just how much, like, the male teams are dominating, and it's hard to see the female teams falling behind, only that to then reveal your vote. Like, I feel like there could have been a better way to word it and get your point across without immediately contradicting yourself 10 seconds later with your vote.
Do you feel like this is a story beat? We'll talk about, I think, the other major thing to take away from this, which was the Joseph and Adam top 10 anime betrayals moment of voting for Kyland and Taylor. Do you think these story beats will carry forward into future episodes? We only have a few of them, but on the other hand, the Amazing Race at its core, especially during the end game, is usually about running your own race and not necessarily giving opportunities for other teams to help or hamper you.
Yeah, I guess this is where my inexperience with the Amazing Grace comes in, because I'm not familiar. I'm not sure if there are going to be many more moments for this to flesh out more. Like, will there be another U-turn vote? I have no idea, because I don't know how the format works. But if there is an opportunity for it to be brought up again, I would assume that it probably would be touched upon again. I could see it developing even further. Or even, like, as you said, the Joseph and Adam biggest betrayal stuff. I definitely could see that coming into effect once again.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on this from, I guess, both perspectives. First, Taylor's, specifically her response to having Joseph and Adam vote for her. Though I guess I put Joseph in parentheticals here because I also want to get your thoughts on Joseph's decision to essentially put his hands in the air and say, I do not want any blood on my hands at this moment. I'm between a rock and a hard place right now. Adam, you do the voting for us.
Well, I am going to defend Joseph here, and I'm not sure how. I mean, I'm sure I can divulge all of this, but I think I don't see it as like Joseph taking a shot at Kylan and Taylor at all, especially because of that initial express pass. A little birdie told me that some teams really were not happy with Taylor and Kylan giving that express pass to Jag and Jazz, specifically because these people felt that they had a very good personal relationship with Taylor. And they were shocked when especially because of how, I mean, as we see, how dominant Jag and Jazz are in this race.
Yeah.
So I don't really see this as different than them giving the express pass to Jag and Jazz. I think Joseph just taking a step back and being like, Adam, I'm going to let you handle this. If you vote for Taylor and Kylan, so be it. Like, I think it's kind of an eye for an eye sort of situation.
I do want to talk about, again, there was some discussion, on the mat and apparently in between legs about the perceived inequity of, like, okay, the male teams keep doing well. And this is something we discussed on the recap as to, like, is this a different type of Amazing Race season? I mean, I did point out the fact that we have seen a good amount of, like, physical tasks, like the detours, right? It is usually hey, you could do either something physically demanding, but will help you do it quicker, versus something that's a little less physical, but slower. And something that came out that I did not realize is that, according to Izzy on Blue Sky, apparently the person who designed the legs for this season designed the competitions for Big Brother 25.
You're kidding me. That makes so much sense.
I'm taking Izzy at her word. But yeah, again, for the uninitiated, talk a bit about that, because I think your reaction is incredibly warranted.
Yeah. So for those that are not familiar, Big Brother 25 competitions, it famously feels like the straw that broke the camel's back for Big Brother competitions as a whole, because Big Brother competitions, they used to be, for the most part, fairly equitable. There were lots of quizzes, lots of mental challenges, memorization things, where it doesn't matter what your physical ability is, you could always stand a chance because everybody would be on the same playing field. But for Big Brother 25, something like 80% or more of the competitions were mostly physical based, which we saw Jag from this season break the record for the most competition wins in a single season. And it was just the same type of physical challenge over and over and over again. So learning that the person who designed the challenges for this season was on the team for the Big Brother 25 challenges is hilariously like in a funny, but also like, are you kidding me sort of way? Because yeah, there are so many of these challenges where it's like, okay, bring 100 and 200 pounds of salt
Yeah.
across this stretch, or these giant fish nets. And
Yeah.
having the decision. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
No, please
interrupt.
go ahead.
It's just like, and it. How am I trying to phrase this? The Amazing Race, not to talk down about them, but they can kind of put a veil over it and be like, look, there's a choice. They don't have to choose the physical option. There's this other option at the same time, but that doesn't really change the fact that these, super physical teams such as Tucker and Eric, they still get to choose. They get two options, whereas a team like Izzy and Paige, we oftentimes see going for the not physical option because what are they going to do? Or it's like, is Natalie going to carry 200 pounds of salt on her back? That's not the most fair.
Yeah, I do. And eventually, if we get the chance to talk to Izzy, I do want to ask her if she, not to necessarily like dox people, but I want to see like what the specific name of this person is, because that makes me wonder, like, okay, were they also working on The Amazing Race and also work on Big Brother? Or was it like, we're doing a Big Brother specific season of The Amazing Race? Can we bring in people from the Big Brother competition team to work on these challenges, considering how many fans of both shows are going to be watching?
Yeah. Oh, I wonder, because I had no idea. I'm still like smiling in shock as to how crazy that is.
Well, you talk about shock. Let's talk about the ending of this episode. And let's talk about the arc of Tucker and Eric in general. Because looking back at the preseason, I think there was a lot of talk about how, okay, Tucker can be good at things, but he's wild and he's chaotic, and there will be an inevitable point where he stumbles. And that happened, but I don't think it happened in the way that maybe we would have thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
It just goes to show that like you can be good at 95% of things. We saw time and time again where they would have a lead. The next leg would kind of be that reset where everyone's on the same flight, and then they would get first anyways. It's not like they just built their lead and held it. They were continuously getting to the front of the pack because Tucker and Eric were just naturally really good at most things. But every once in a while, you're not going to get that task that works out for you. And it's sad on one part that they did so good all the way through just to be put in a spot where Tucker has to memorize 26 Greek letters and he can't do it. But at the same time, that is what makes it so interesting, because if it was always stuff that he could do, then where's the fun? He's just going to get first place every leg and he's going to win.
And therein lies sort of the dichotomy of Amazing Race thinking. And we experience this really every season, right? Which is like, you have to balance your mind between two thoughts of, and this happens with a lot of, reality shows in general, but okay, do we want the big blind sides of the, oh, anything can happen to anyone at any time? Or do we want the cream rising to the top? Because these two ideas sort of lie almost antithetical to each other sometimes, where yeah, you might get more of an exciting ending, but a bit more of a boring lead up if all of the quote unquote weaker teams are taken out, or if you have a bunch of these front runner teams just sort of having their legs get cut out from under them, you might end up with a little bit more of a less than satisfactory winner, just because all of the big characters, the big racers of the season, were taken out prior to the final leg.
Yeah, you're right. It is like a dichotomy. We like not risk versus reward, but you gotta weigh the factors. And I think having it as it is, it's a good middle where you do see some underdog teams still making it farther. Not to like discredit Izzy and Paige. They've been like my favorite team this whole time, and they've been crushing a lot of the challenges. But just from like my grandparents, they watched The Amazing Race every year. And I'm sure going into this season, they weren't expecting Izzy and Paige to be like potentially in the finale or potentially like going for the win. So it's nice to see Izzy and Paige beat Tucker and Eric in this because they were more well-rounded in the challenges given that day.
All right. Well, I want to get your thoughts on not only the remaining teams, but of course some teams that we unfortunately lost along the way. And let's continue on the Tucker and Eric train because I'm curious from your perspective. Again, we had seen Tucker just be an absolute hurricane in that house for the 6 or 7 weeks that he was a part of Big Brother 26. So, what were your expectations of him and Eric, both from a competition perspective as well as a TV perspective going into the season? And how did the results either meet your expectations or subvert them?
I was very curious to see if Tucker was going to feel the need to live up to his persona. If he was going to feel like he had a reputation to uphold and to really wreak havoc among the Amazing Race cast. And I feel like he didn't, but I feel like that's also good. Like he was still himself, where we saw that first double U-turn. He gets there. Tucker in the Big Brother house, I'm sure he would have put two big names out there, not caring, would have
He
signed
would have
his name
U-turned
at the
himself
end.
if it was Tucker in the Big Brother house.
He would have put himself on there just to prove that he could do it. But he was thinking a lot more strategically. He's like, I'm already in first. No need to get the extra blood on our hands. Let's move past it. And I think that was a positive development in terms of Tucker as a game player. And I still think he brought fun. I still think he was as electric as he could be without bringing all the chaotic mess that he had in the Big Brother 26 house.
Probably best way to talk about the remaining teams is just go in the order that they checked in this most recent episode. And so let's talk about, I think one of the big surprises of Tucker and Eric's elimination is that a lot of people have prognosticated, myself included, okay, this could be one of a handful of teams that on paper on any given day you would expect to win the race. The ones that are alongside them in terms of that competition and at this point might be the front runners are Jag and Jazz. So you mentioned, of course, Jazz competition prowess precedes his reputation. So again, what was your expectation versus what him and Jazz have been able to do this season?
I mean, yeah, as you said, we already know what Jag's competition prowess is. So now you give us two Jags. How
for the price
is
of one
this supposed to stack? Exactly. And as we've seen, they've been crushing it. I think Jag's competition ability has translated over seamlessly. And Jazz really does seem to be right there with him. I haven't noticed any real difference in their competitive ability. And we saw like they got first in the first couple legs. Now they are apparently the first team ever to finish first after getting U-turned.
Yeah.
And it didn't even look, well, it looked a little close, but they crushed it. They took the penalty in stride. And now that Tucker and Eric are out of the way, they definitely are the front runners.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. For me, it's like, spoiler alert, for the Avengers Infinity War. It's like when Thor spent the entire movie making this axe happen to take out Thanos, and like he comes in and tries to to kill him, and then Thanos just says he should have gone for the head and then does the snap. Like that's to me this was the only opportunity to, I think, get rid of Jag and Jazz was to U-turn them. Now again, we were proven wrong with Tucker and Eric. There could be a moment where they slip up so badly that they get taken out. So it's not to say it's a 100% chance, but again, I feel like basically in every single task that they have been given, they have been able to think their way through it in a certain way to be able to get ahead or stay in the middle of the pack. And I think what it really is fundamentally important to their success is the navigation. Like, we cannot understate the fact that these guys had to do 2 whole ass detours, and they got to the second detour before the other teams that just had to do 1 detour.
Mm-hmm.
That is astounding. That is remarkable navigation skills on their part.
Yeah, and that's something that I didn't even really take into consideration. Just because for the most part, we do see the teams get from point A to B, but the fact that they were able to get to point A to B that fast is a testament to their navigation skills and their ability to navigate this new place that I'm sure they've never been to.
Well, let's go to a team that maybe has had a bit more of difficulty getting from point A to point B, including in this episode, but they still did rise to their highest finish yet. Second place. I want to get your thoughts on Chelsea. And what have been your thoughts about her race alongside her dad, Jack?
It's been interesting watching Chelsea in a position that is not the front running position. That's where we saw her for the most part of Big Brother 26. Always the forefront of the alliance, knowing what's going on throughout the entire house. Now we see her with her dad, Jack. And I think their relationship is super funny because you can see their differences, but you can also see how they're related. Because sometimes when like one will get frustrated with the other, it's like looking into a mirror because that's exactly how the other would get frustrated with the first person. And it's been fun. Like, yeah, they've been more of an underdog team compared to the front runners. We've seen, yeah, this is their highest finish they've gotten so far in second. And I mean, Chelsea's good at competitions.
Yeah.
Jack makes me laugh to no end. I love Jack. They could definitely just keep scraping by, get to the end, and then all it takes is one challenge where I don't know what is it. What was Jack? Was Jack
Well, he was a firefighter.
Firefighter? Yeah, there's a huge skill set like ceiling there. So definitely a team that I'm looking out for, even if they haven't been the stars of the show per se.
Well, let's talk about two of, I would say, the stars of the show, maybe not from a dominance perspective, but certainly from an entertainment perspective. You talked a bit about, your reaction to Joseph and Adam being non-eliminated, but what have your thoughts been about getting to see these brothers in all of their wild glory over the past 2 months?
I know I said Izzy and Paige were my favorite team, but Joseph and Adam are actually my favorite team, I think. Their laughs are so infectious. I can't watch them and not have a smile on my face.
Yeah.
No matter how hard it gets, they always have a smile. They're always laughing, or their emotions, they're wearing them on their sleeves for better or for even better, because I just love seeing how raw in themselves they are in this race and what they're racing for. And the fact that they're also doing pretty good it's just my favorite team to watch.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a big part of the storyline between these two is Adam racing with his diabetes. Obviously hit kind of a breaking point in the previous episode, though he was able to push through it. I mean, I don't know if you have anyone in your life who is a type 1 and diabetic, but what have your thoughts been on how that storyline has been approached and how these guys have approached this during some dangerous situations?
Yeah, I guess I don't know or I'm not close to anybody with diabetes. So I didn't realize just how much of a mental load it puts on these two, where I wouldn't think I've never needed to think about what my blood sugar levels are. So being able to watch them, and not only do they have the weight of the race on their shoulders, but they also have to make sure that Adam's doing okay. And this is just my complete not understanding of it or the race as a whole. But I just wonder, like, why don't they have like more snacks on hand? And again, this is me not knowing. I could just be like completely misinformed, but I specifically remember like the dancing challenge. He said it would take about like 15 minutes for them to stop, get his blood sugars back up. And it's like, I wonder, is that something that is, you could just drink a juice box? Because that's my only knowledge of type 1 diabetes is my friends in school would have to go to the nurse's office. They would get a juice box and they would come back to class. So clearly I'm extremely misinformed on it. And I had no idea. Is that something where they really need to sit, take a few moments, like measure his levels and then get back into it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because also some behind the scenes stuff from Leg is that they had a device to measure the blood sugar levels called a Dexcom, and it died. It expired over that
No
leg.
way.
Yeah, but part of
God.
that is like, so again, like, and Joseph wanted to get a new one. He wanted to like get it all set up, but the whole running, quite literal theme of that episode was like Adam refused to stop. I think because the roadblock put them so far behind, he was so dead set on making sure that, they were able to survive and push through, that like he was putting his body on the line. And it seems wild to us. I've heard from a couple people who are diabetic and they've relayed their own situations where like sometimes push comes to shove and you just kind of gotta get through it, even if from our perspective, like it sounds catastrophically dangerous for your blood sugar to crash like that.
The way that I was like, oh my God, like just take a second. But that just shows how much it means to Adam and how much he's willing to push through. especially
Yeah.
because he's racing for somebody else as well.
I am intrigued about the logistics of it because usually in the Amazing Race, if you want to buy food, besides the stuff that's provided to you in between legs, you have to use your own money to do it, and you have to like take time out of the way to do so. That's why people buy food at like airports. There's actually a very fun scene. It actually might have been during the reality TV crossover season that you were mentioning before, where like one team bought McDonald's at the airport for all the other teams to try to like curry favor with them. But otherwise, like you have to stop down and do it. So it's not like production's providing food. And on the one hand, you might be like, there should be special liberties allowed, but I
Yeah.
but I think back to like, there was a Survivor season that happened a couple of years ago where there was a contestant who had an abundance of food allergies, and there was a lot of discussion as to like, okay, should she have been given special treatment because she's allergic to a lot of this stuff? And then there's another side of discussion of being like, she knows what she signed up for. Like she did not necessarily sign up for any sort of special treatment. And I think if you ask Adam himself, who has just been actually given, an accommodation, an award for his representation, he'd probably be the first to tell you, like, yeah, I don't want any special treatment from production. I want to show that we are just as capable of racing as anyone who doesn't have diabetes.
Yeah. And I mean, that's beautiful. You said it perfectly. I have literally nothing to add to that.
Well, let's move into Izzy and Paige, your other favorite
They're
team.
so great.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts about them.
No, they're just so fun. Like, this is exactly what I hoped from Izzy, where
Yeah.
she really brought that Big Brother 25, messy, not afraid to say what's on her mind. I mean, I think my favorite episode is probably that first U-turn episode, largely because I loved how much Izzy was just like, I hate Jag. I don't have to pretend to be nice to him anymore. I can't wait to see the look on his face when he sees us and realizes that U-turning us didn't work and we're still here. They're so great. I love how good they are at the tasks that nobody else chooses. Like we see, like they were the only team to do the showing one.
Mm-hmm.
And once I saw how in-depth that one was, I was like, oh my God, I would be terrible at that. And they're just having a good time, keeping each other calm. That's another thing I love about them. I love how they're always grounding themselves. They're like, hey, I love you. Take a second, little smooch, back at it, smiles on their face. Like they're just such an easy team to root for because I don't know, just everything I just said. I love rooting for them. I hope if Joseph and Adam can't win, I hope Izzy and Paige do. And I might be rooting for Izzy and Paige more. I still haven't decided. It's one of those two teams, though.
I mean, it's been really fun to watch people kind of realize the Izzy that we all know, as you mentioned, because I do think that the way she was edited on Big Brother 25 obfuscated a lot of the fact that, like, it was a three-headed dragon ruling that house in the first half of Big Brother 25, and it was her and Felicia and Suri, and they kept us up delightfully so for all hours of the night with just making plans and then going back on those plans and then refortifying those plans. And I mean, it has been interesting. I know that there was some back and forth during like Izzy's frustrated reaction to the salt test, for example, of not necessarily, again, sometimes emotionality in the Amazing Race, sometimes it produces iconic moments, sometimes people don't necessarily like it. But again, I think given our perspective, specifically as someone who knew Izzy had that fire in her, I'm glad that a lot of people are getting a more true sense as to not only who she is there, but also her relationship with one of the most important people in her life.
Yeah. And I mean, Paige has been absolutely great too. I know I talked a lot about Izzy, but Paige has been another like fun character on this show. Balances out Izzy in a perfect way, and the two of them are so fun to watch.
Well, let's go from a relationship that we knew a lot about to one that we didn't. I've done this every single time I've gotten together with somebody. I guess the first question I have to ask before we get into Kyland and Taylor on the race is, what was your reaction to finding out that Kyland and Taylor will be a couple?
Yeah, I had heard something about that like what feels like a year ago. Didn't hear anything else from it. And then I saw they were on The Amazing Race and I was like, oh, I did not realize it was going that well, where they are being put on The Amazing Race together. And I remember feeling like, not even just about them dating, but like, why are they the only team with two Big Brother players on it? Like, that's so... We see another couple on this season with Tucker and Rubina, and they're not racing together. So it was just like, it just felt like so interesting. Like, why just have one team? But because of it, I was like, they were the team that I picked as my winner pick before the season began, because
Yeah.
I was like, they got double the people I know that are capable at challenges and these social strategy games. Um,
So then,
they're
yeah,
oh,
so
go
let's
for it.
talk about what your thoughts are now of them on the race, and not to say that like we're getting any sort of massive introspection as to like what their relationship is like, but now
Oh
that we're
yeah.
aware of this relationship, like what were your thoughts on the dynamic we've seen over the past 9 episodes?
It's been interesting. Their dynamic has seemed almost at a crossroads a
Mm.
lot of the time, and I'm sure we are just being like, it is just being highlighted, the times where uh they'll be arguing, or Kyland will say something and Taylor will roll her eyes to the camera. Uh, but clearly, even through that, they're one of the strongest teams left. They've made it to this point. I'm just wondering where the storyline will end, because right now I can't tell if it is just like two people, like what the show is trying to portray. Is it two people that are arguing sometimes, but still making their way through it, or are they going to have a big triumphant finish and then Kylan proposes to Taylor at the finale?
Imagine. Oh my god. Yeah, it's a very good point because I really do feel like, listen, we're nearing 25 years of the Amazing Race, and like the path has been littered with many of these cases that, as you mentioned, usually go in one of two directions, where it's like, yeah, we fight, but we still love each other, or like we are really oil and water right now. This is not necessarily going to work out. Now, for what it's worth, at this moment right now, again, it could change even like after we get off the podcast here, but I don't believe they are together. So, we'll
I actually
see.
wasn't sure.
Yeah, so we shall see if maybe we might see why towards the end
Hmm.
of the race, whether these communication issues are clearly on display, or it could be a like, rewatching the show, I realize how much we care for each other, so let's get back together.
I wonder which way it's going to go now, knowing that they are not together. I'm not holding out hope for a proposal anymore, but we'll just
Well,
have to wait and see.
let's dote on these eliminated teams. And of course, I have to start with, as you mentioned, the personal connection that you have to one of them. People who don't necessarily follow your content might not know the connection that you have with the Turners. So feel free
Yes.
to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I guess it's 2 years ago at this point. I moved into an apartment building, and after a couple months, through some funny circumstances, I realized that Matt and Megan also lived in this apartment building, and me and my fiance became friends with Matt and Megan for the year. We hung out a bunch of times, and then last year we moved away, and so coming to it was really fun when the news of the Amazing Race 38 first dropped, and I was like, wait a second, I know these people. And it was nice. I called my grandparents because I know, as I mentioned, they're huge Amazing Race fans,
Uh huh.
and I was like, hey, on this next season, I know these people, so make sure you root for them. Not to get too sidetracked, but
No.
I called him Turner. On the show, they are Megan and Matt, so my
Yeah, well, yeah.
grandparents
Well,
got
what is your
confused.
feeling on that, especially someone that knows them more intimately than I think the casual layman?
I mean, it's tough to sometimes it's hard. I've been trying to call him Matt more often, but just knowing him from Big Brother for the 3 months that I was watching the feeds and dissecting it and writing about stuff, he's always been Turner. And it makes sense why they changed it
Yeah.
for
So
this, but that
So
has
what
been
what so
tough.
what did you I mean, you knew, I guess, going into this that they would have an early leave, that they would go out third. But what
Hmm.
were your thoughts on, because again, from the beginning, it seemed like it was playing a lot of catch up for them.
Yeah, it was fun watching them triumph those first two legs, and by triumph I mean not be the team that gets last place, because
Which is
both
the
times
goal of the Amazing
it was
Race at the end of
like
the day.
it was either going to be them or the other team, and they prevailed those two times. And I thought it was going to be another close finish for third. I had no idea how they got eliminated. I only had known from talking to them that they were out pretty early,
Mm.
but they definitely got lost on that third leg, and that was sad to see. Like I would have loved to watch Megan and Matt go further, but even seeing them on there, like it's just fun seeing someone on TV. And that
Mm.
it was very fun rooting for them, even though I knew the eventual outcome was not going to be one where they win.
Let's segment out discussion of these eliminated teams. Let's start with sort of this first batch that Megan and Matt go out alongside. A group of teams that I think, again, on the surface, even watching that first leg, you'd be like, yeah, I could see them going out in some order here. So, of course, we have Jack and Enzo being the first eliminated. We have the aforementioned Angela Murray and her daughter Lexi going next out. Then the Turners, and then Kat Dunn making her return to reality TV alongside her boyfriend Alex. Any random thoughts you have on those other three teams?
Not to be disrespectful in any way, I forgot Jack and Enzo were on this season.
It was like 2+ months ago at this point. So
Yeah, it was, and that was the one episode I watched before I went on the binge as well. So I watched that one 2 months ago, and even from what I remember, they were not featured that much on that episode. And then who? Oh yeah, Angela and Lexi, bring them back. I was so sad that they left that early. I think their dynamic, obviously, Angela Murray is great casting, one of my favorites. And Lexi, I think it was just like you could see the Angela in her, and it was just a
yeah,
younger version of Angela that I would love to see more of either of them come back. And then Kat and Alex, they were a very I feel like they got a lot of content. Maybe it was because they were playing catch up a lot, but I thought their dynamic was given a lot of coverage. And although I wish they had been eliminated instead of Matt and Megan for my own personal reasons, it was a little like sad to see them triumph there, only to then fall back to the back of the pack in that next episode and ultimately get eliminated.
all right, let's talk about the rest of the eliminated teams. And it is 3 teams of sisters going out back to back to back here. We have one of the sources of your 3 emotional moments this season in the Chata
Yes.
sisters, Hannah and Simone. After them, went with Christine and Rubina. And then after them, and I would say probably the next most shocking boot alongside
Mm-hmm.
Tucker and Eric, the Negrati sisters, Natalie and Stephanie. So go through your spare thoughts on each one of these.
Yeah, Hannah and Simone, they were such a blessing to watch.
Yeah.
They were the team that I found my heart rooting for the most. Even though I have my personal favorites, I always wanted to watch them thrive and succeed. And I was so sad. As I said, I was getting like emotional when I learned that they were not going to be the team to survive that leg. Uh, they were a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Natalie and Stephanie, yeah, their elimination was shocking, and it was sad in the sense where like you could see how they like initially started off behind in that leg where they were
Mm.
getting their plane tickets, and there was that awkward moment where there just wasn't enough for them, and that seemed to kind of start rolling the ball towards their eventual elimination. I don't remember exactly what the last task they had to do.
It was making the mud bricks that
The
they
mud brick. Oh
had
yeah,
a
that
tough
gross
time with.
challenge. Yeah, but their dichotomy or their relationship as a whole, they felt like two peas in opposite pods, where they called themselves like the yin yang
Mhm.
sisters or something, the sissies. And it was just like cool to see two people so different from each other. I feel like that's a positive for the Amazing Race because they have such unique skill sets for the race. And it was a shame to see them go out because they did seem like one of the front running teams in the beginning. And then there's Christine and Rubina, who I've said that most teams are my favorite. I have to have a team I wasn't rooting for as much, and that does just happen to be Christine and Rubina. I did
Mm.
find it very funny that Rubina was not rooting for Tucker after she got eliminated. That
Yeah, maybe
that was
when we talk
very
about
funny.
beginning to see the beginning of the end, maybe that was actually the proof in the pudding. I mean, that was one of the many things that surprised me going into this season was I thought that we were going to have a locked in 2-team alliance of Tucker and Eric and
Yes.
Rubina and Christine. And not only was there not one, but in talking with both of the teams, they said they actively made an effort to be like, no, we're competitors. We met as individuals on Big Brother. Like we got to see who bests the other person.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger shocks. Just how little it seemed they cared, or to phrase it in a much better way, how impressively they were able to split their emotional versus their game feelings. Where you see Tucker being like, like, I don't know if Rubina's still in. Like, I hope she's in. But then when he finds out she's not in, it doesn't look like he has that much of a visible reaction. And his mantra stayed the same, where it's like, I'm here to get first place. Only one team can get first. Sucks that she's not here, but that doesn't change the course for me. And that was just interesting because it's not what I expected going into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, I also want to get your thoughts. And granted, you're coming in from the perspective of, basing your entire content and living on a show that is all about alliances. But what are your thoughts about the way alliances have played out in this season? I mean, it's interesting because we really only had one major one, a named one in the Trainwreck Alliance. But even so, when you had like Kyland and Taylor and Jag and Jazz thinking they had a deal going on, what have been your thoughts on the amount of strategy in this season?
Well, it was interesting, especially that named alliance, because you saw them helping each other out, like Jas and Jack leaving the directions for Joseph and Adam and putting it in their trunk. Like, I liked that. But in terms of like actually using the alliance for like concrete purposes, like you saw Natalie and Stephanie get to that where they officially made the alliance, and it's like, okay, great. You boys, you guys are both getting the maximum crates possible. And it's like, you're not using your alliance for good, but I think that's also, or like for like helping each other in that sense. But I think that's the big brother in it, where they're thinking one extra step ahead. And it's like, hey, I don't want these teams to necessarily think that we're all together. So by giving you guys the most amount of crates to fill, they're masking it. And so it is interesting to see these extra levels develop. And I'm not an Amazing Race expert. I don't know how far Alliance is or how the meta has been stretched in the Amazing Race, but it is interesting, like watching the Big Brother-esqueness come into play, only for it to like not seem to matter that much in the end. And then there's the Kyland and Jag thing, or the Kyland and Taylor and Jag and Jazz U-turn debacle, where it just feels like there was a lot of buildup, all for like not much.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I understand why they felt the need to keep it as secretive as they did, because again, that is textbook Big Brother, right? Like, they can't know about our alliance. And I guess this was maybe the equivalent of like Dan nominating Memphis, right? Of like, okay, we got to keep the Renegade a secret. Okay, Jag and Jazz, Joseph and Adam, we'll give you the most amount of weight if you're okay with it. It doesn't really matter. I guess maybe it would matter more so with this cast if like they're given opportunities to say, oh, there's an alliance, we got to go after it. But like, again, the edict of the race usually has been run your own race. And again, there have been a couple times where alliances have helped. Again, we had an alliance steamroll their way to the end. Basically, we've had other instances of like, there's been one leg where it was 4 teams and 3 teams just gang up on the other team, being like, we're all going to follow each other in taxis. We're all going to work together to box out this other team. There was one, I think the first official alliance in the Amazing Race, to the point where they had a name, was actually dragging each other down, because the downside of having alliances on the Amazing Race is that if you're waiting around for other people to finish, you could all travel together. Like, that is time ticking away that could possibly get you eliminated as well. So it's still a thorny subject. You have to really stretch how much you want to utilize that to how much you value your individual game. And so while I am surprised that there was, especially amongst these 3 teams in the very beginning, a bit of like, Natalie and Stephanie, you take the first place. Happy birthday. It's tough to, I think, get the Big Brother out of the Big Brother alumni from that perspective.
Also, just to touch upon real quick, I think it's so funny that Jag and Jazz were like, we're going to give it to Natalie and Stephanie because then it'll make us look less threatening. Because 2 firsts and a second, that's way better than 3 firsts. And it's like, okay, who are you tricking here? Who is going to be like, oh, Jag and Jazz, they got second on the third leg. We don't have to worry about them.
Yeah, they have a weakness in their armor. It's fine. They're on the downslope.
Exactly. Yeah, they're going down. That was just funny to me.
Well, to finish things off, of course, I gotta have you call your shot. Give me the Ethanimale winner pick at this moment for the Amazing Race 38.
I don't know how much of an edgy community there is, or if there is, but I just feel like Joseph and Adam have the most like build up, the most heroic storyline put out there. Where if you finish that off with them winning, that's the perfect cap to their storyline. So I'm gonna put the crown on Joseph and Adam, and I'm gonna hope that they can take this home.
All
Or
right.
Izzy and Paige.
All right, you have called your shot. We shall see if it's met in just a few weeks' time. So just to again remind people of the schedule that we've got going on here on RHAP because of the Thanksgiving holiday, there will be an episode airing on Wednesday night. CBS has definitely I think banked on the fact that you're going to be home with your families. Throw something on, throw in the 3 hours of CBS reality TV. There will not be anything coming your way the next day, either through exit interviews or recaps. We'll be doing the recap on Friday instead. Lighten up your Black Friday with us as we recap the final 5 episode. And then Monday is when Exit Press will be held. So it's a little bit of an extended cycle to talk about this episode, but should hopefully be a good one, especially after such a big elimination. Ethanimale, anything else you want to talk about? Any other final thoughts you have about the Amazing Race 38 up to this point?
I've been enjoying it a lot. I'm really glad that you reached out to me and knocked the domino over that started the process of me binge watching The Amazing Race, because I have enjoyed it. I don't think I will watch the next season because I think I enjoyed this a lot because of the Big Brother people.
Mm.
But I think The Amazing Race as a format, I gained a lot more like respect for, where I was enjoying the destinations and I was enjoying the traveling. I think I enjoyed just the learning part about these different countries more than the race at some points. I think it's just as a show a very cool idea that I'm very glad I have a better understanding of it now.
Well, I'm so happy that you came on to get the chance to talk with me. I love it. To be honest, it's so weird to me, like hearing your voice in response to me. I feel like because I'm just used to watching your videos and hearing you wax profound about all the stuff across 25 plus years of Big Brother. So thank you for coming on and offering your perspective on a very Big Brother adjacent thing, especially because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong here, is this like your RHAP debut, technically
Yeah, this
speaking?
is the RHAP debut. Jeez, I can't talk anymore. Yeah, this is my first time on RHAP, which is also pretty very interesting for me because I've been listening to RHAP since I was in diapers, it seems like. So being on RHAP now and having my first official appearance here, it's a great feeling.
Well, first and certainly not the last. Such an incredible job as expected. And of course, people aren't checking you out just yet. You are putting out fantastic content on the reg about Big Brother. Why don't you give like an elevator pitch for those that are foolish and have not yet subscribed to Ethanimale on YouTube? And where can people check you out?
Oh, an elevator pitch. Okay, well, if you are only an Amazing Grace fan, there's been a lot of Big Brother teams on there. So if you have any enjoyment of these Big Brother teams, you can learn more about these Big Brother players over on my YouTube channel at Ethanimale, where I go back and forth between talking about specific topics like top fives or the history of a specific subject, while also doing player deep dives where I zone in on one particular player. I've got one on Taylor, I've got one on Jag and Chelsea and Angela. That's 4 people that were on this season. And if 3 hours of Survivor and The Amazing Race isn't enough for you, on Friday, I have a 3-hour video talking about the most recent winner of Big Brother, Ashley Hollis from Big Brother 27. So
I would say a tight ally of Rachel Riley, who is very familiar to Amazing Race fans out there.
yeah, exactly. And if you like Rachel, I got a video on her too. So there's plenty for the Amazing Race fans over on Ethanimale's YouTube channel, even if it's not specifically about the Amazing Race.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of all the great content you're doing to come on and make your RHAP debut. Is an absolute honor to get the chance to talk with you. Of course, again, as I mentioned, you can expect a recap of this Wednesday's episode on Friday this week and an exit interview on Monday. Otherwise, check out all the other great stuff we're doing on RHAP. Do a little bit of a tease. If you're a patron of RHAP, you get access to a very fun podcast that went up over the weekend where Rob Cisternino took a bit of his own navel-gazing dive through his history with the podcast and specifically some beefs that were generated amongst a variety of reality TV contestants. Spoiler alert, one of them is an Amazing Race team. So if you want to find out
Oh,
who that is, be sure to check all that out, as well as all the other stuff we've got going on with Survivor and everything else too. So let me know. We have just a few weeks left, but I've been loving this series so far, getting to talk with people from the Big Brother community about their thoughts on this season. Feel free to suggest others. After the video I did with Peridium, Ethanimale, you were a highly recommended suggestion in the comments as well. So keep paying it forward. Keep the chain going, people. Let me know who you want to hear from as we round the bend on the Amazing Race 38. I hope everyone who celebrates Thanksgiving has a wonderful holiday, hopefully a nice, relaxing, joyful time, and maybe watching the Amazing Race on Wednesday night will be included in that. Either way, we'll be back on Friday recapping the most recent episode. Until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.